welcome to episode 3 of the GFD North podcast. My name is Ryan Woodhouse, and in this episode I'll be interviewing Alex Noax. So, you can catch Alex Noax's presentation on the Saturday, the 6th of August. So head over to gfdnorth.uk where you can find a link to Alex's work. So to give a quick background of Alex is currently a freelance concept designer based in Manchester. His main focus is on hard surface design and problem solving for the entertainment industry. He has 6+ years of helping shape both established and brand new IPs. His clients include Cloud Imperium Games, where he helped design spaceships and weapons for the Star Citizen game. You also have Tencent, where he contributed to the vehicles, weapons, props and environments, and the also overall style direction. We also have CCP, where he contributed to the EVE Online series, Treyarch for the Call of Duty Black Ops series, and also a character design studio, Bungie, and most recently Embark Studios, where he contributed to the release of the Ark Raiders game, and also not forgetting Probably Monsters on an unannounced IP. So without further ado, can I please welcome Alex Noax to the podcast. Alex, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great, thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's great to be on. I've been looking forward to this interview all week, so I think we can just start out by just going over your work and maybe just having a quick chat about some of the great work in your portfolio. So you can see your portfolio here.
Yep.
Fantastic.
All the old stuff, all the outdated.
This is it. I mean, I'm sure you're incredibly productive. So is there any piece that you'd like to start off by chatting about first? Is there anything that jumps out as that we can talk about first?
It's probably the Mechs, the stuff I did for the Nothing But Mech book. So if you go further, the next one. Yeah, that guy. So this is, I believe it's like the oldest work I still have up online, but that moment specifically, that design, it was like the biggest aha moment where there's time before it and there's time after it. Before it was a lot of experimentation and looking at how can I do my stuff, how can I present it, how can I find sort of not necessarily 100% my way of doing and showing stuff, but something that I could claim as my own, I guess. Yeah. Anyway, so before that it was a lot of random stuff, and then once I did that mech, everything clicked, literally overnight. And since then everything was much easier. So for me, this is the most significant piece I've ever done. It's also in the book, Nothing But Mech 4, I think.
Yeah.
I think it's fourth or third.
Yeah, a very popular book. For those who haven't checked it out, go take a look at some incredible designs in that book. And also, just talking about incredible design, there's a very interesting function, like the way this platform here is connected. Would you be able to tell us a little bit more about how this works and what this is in the center?
So the general idea for this was something that could move really quickly. Originally, it was supposed to be like a runner, some maybe like a leopard or like a cat-like thing, 4 legs, can hop quickly. So the hexapod in the middle would sort of like stabilize the movement, so you stay still while everything underneath moves. Throughout the development, it got heavier and visually heavier and heavier. So like right now, all the legs, all the mechanics, pretty substantial and beefy. So it's like way more tanky, and it sits more like a gorilla rather than like a fox. The hexapod, however, stayed there just because it creates a lot of nice negative shapes. It's a mechanical flavor. It's functional. It looks great. I kept it. Doesn't make sense in terms of like it being beefy, because take one shot into the piston and you're done. But creative license.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
Also, like the character there is completely exposed. Questionable design decisions in retrospect. I still like it. I think style-wise, it works really well. It's a little homage to Metal Gear, which I hold dear. It's one of my favorite series, and I kind of try to invoke the same feelings that Yoji Shinkawa might do when he designed for Metal Gear, or like when he designs for like current projects or whatever. Not as successful as I thought back then. Looking back at it now, still like it a lot. So yeah.
And also, is this part of and this final mech that we're seeing here? This I'm just guessing this is inspired by a Blade Runner, similar to the human artificial limbs. Is that right?
So this is they both in the same post, but they actually only vaguely related, and this one has a completely different story. This was done sometime after the first one. In between there were other works, and this one actually started as a joke in the studio. That's
Okay.
so I think we were on the lunch break, and we were fooling around, and I was pushing a chair, and then I was like, hold up, what if the chair was a robot and you kind of like walking it, so like it's like a platform that you can walk? And then I just designed it, so there was a version with like two shields in front of it, so kind of like
you can see,
yeah. So it's basically like almost like just like a platform that you can put systems on, like weapon systems or like anything you want. And one of the ideas was it would have riot shields, and if you deploy it as like riot police unit, you can fend off people, but you don't hold the shield, you hold the mech, and the mech holds the shield, and then you like kind of push it back and forth. Started as a joke, ended up as a concept. I like it. Maybe I'll revisit it one day.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea to take the function from something completely unrelated and apply it to your design to try and solve a problem. And I think that's a great idea, because I mean, initially you might think, oh, that's kind of a funny idea, but it's actually quite unique in terms of a design to use the mech as a shield and to kind of push this thing across. Yeah, I can see that there.
I have to give a little bit of credit. Part of it was inspired also by, again, Metal Gear Solid 5. They have a walker that you don't walk, but you jump on it, and it's like a small mech that you can drive around and walk inside of it. I like that idea a lot, and I just wanted to scale it down, plus mesh it together with my chair pushing adventures inside of the studio. So that's how this design came around.
Yeah, and I feel, especially with the Metal Gear 5 stuff, it is quite well designed, and it's a great quality bar as well. And I'm guessing, is that something else that you like to do? Do you like to keep, say, a particular kind of IP or a quality bar in mind every time you create a new piece?
Not really. I don't. I try to. I mentioned like Metal Gear a lot already, but I don't wanna. Generally, I like to get the inspiration not directly from, oh, this is a cool shape and I'm gonna copy it, or like I'm gonna reference it into my work. I try to look at other projects as like, okay, what are they standing? Like, what is the general like idea? What they trying to communicate? What is their voice? And then try and understand how they created it, and then use it in my work. And with Metal Gear example is, what I like about it is they use realistic, let's say, weapons. They use quite realistic forms, and they use realistic, believable shapes, materials, but they reconfigure it into a unrealistic form. A good example would be like Metal Gear Gecko, from Metal Gear 4, Sahelanthropus. Giant mechs, completely unrealistic, but a lot of the elements, they are referenced from real world tanks and other military equipment. And that arrangement was always fascinating to me. Another great example, a bit more fantastical, would be probably Titanfall 2, where a lot of real world inspiration mashed together with unrealistic forms and shapes to create somewhat believable mechs. On a flip side, we have stuff like Gundams, which is totally sci-fi. There might be some references from like real world, but you look at it and it's, I hate to say it, but it's kind of like a plastic toy. It's great in its own right, but it doesn't have that grounded feel. And that's what I'm always looking for in projects. And Metal Gear, Titanfall, those are great examples where they did it really well. It's a grounded sci-fi. Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, Aaron Beck's work is still like probably my top 5 ever. Just incredible design.
Very iconic as well, and well recognized within the industry as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's the combination of a fantastic shape design, silhouette, and function all meshed together, and that's something I'm after and always on the lookout for, both in portfolios of other people, projects, and I'm trying to like get better at doing it myself.
That's so true. So do you spend a lot of time, say, researching like mechanical things and how things work? I'm assuming so, in order to get this level of like believability and make sure all the pistons work and the guns and all this kind of thing.
To right now, not as much, because at certain point you kind of learn how everything in general functions. I'm not saying I know exactly how stuff works, but if you want to imply functionality of, let's say, like a robot arm, like you don't need too many references to figure out how that works. I still look for interesting shapes, forms, or like details that can be referenced, and occasionally I come across a very like interesting a fold out mechanism or like something unique that works well, and then like I will save and take note and maybe study that. But generally I used to do it a lot. Now I don't do it as much unless I needed like super specific stuff.
Yeah. So for the hexapod, for example, I'm assuming that you probably went online and just found some references of that just to use as you're going through the design. Yeah.
There was a specific reference. It's a I don't remember the company. It might be Rheinmetall in Germany or something like that. They have a hexapod to test the stability of the tank turrets.
Nice.
And I saw that and I was like, oh, I'll just use that as a reference. Also, that was a good example of or like this mech is a good example of I really wanted to make sure it's working. So the original file, which I don't have anymore, it's actually rigged and everything does function. That's how I posed it and all the stuff. So somewhat believable, somewhat mechanically sound.
Yeah. Oh, nice. So there's an animation of this thing crawling around somewhere on the hard drive.
It doesn't have like walking animation, but you can like push on it and everything was working back then. It was like an exercise in like how can I push it a bit further. Unfortunately, I don't have it in my portfolio. Hopefully new work that I'm doing will have a lot more emphasis on not just static images, but also like here it's actually how it would work, because that sells design much better than me telling people that it works.
That's it, yeah. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so I mean, you were mentioning before as well, we know that you're not a truck guy. Do you want to have a quick chat about this, or do you want to have a quick chat about, say, the Mongoose mech, seeing as we're going to talk about mechs at the moment?
Mongoose is it's part of like a very dragged out and ongoing personal project that I'm working on now. And the reason why there is no new work for like I don't know how long, no new work for like a year, is because I'm putting all my free time into my quote-unquote IP. And Mongoose was one of the first works that I've done, and I was like, this is the style I like. This is a good balance between function, shape, silhouette, and just the presence of the design. So when I did that, and I still look back at the Mongoose, and I reference my own work for my own stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
But this is extremely successful design in my opinion, and it will be redesigned from scratch to like reflect the current art direction of the project. But yeah, so this was like another small breakaway, or like small break in terms of style, I guess.
Yeah. So you said you're going to go back and redesign this. Is there anything that you don't like about this design at the moment that you want to change on the next round?
So what's the most successful about it is, I guess, the overall stance and how it feels. So it sits really well. A lot of people when they do, like, especially that image, the first image, it's really well planted and extremely successful in my opinion. A lot of people, when they do vehicles or like mechs or anything else hard surface that just stands, it becomes either very static, so like a box on the ground, it's very static, or it's so dynamic that it doesn't have any weight and it doesn't look like it could, like take a punch or something, let's say if you're doing a tank or a truck. So first and foremost, whenever I design anything, it's like, does it sit well? And if it's a flying object or a gun, does it feel correctly? Not necessarily does it look right, because that comes later. But the first thing is like, does it feel good? Because even I believe that designs that are not very, let's say, visually exciting, they don't have many details or crazy materials, but they feel correct. They look good when character, for example, holds a weapon. That's like important thing. That's a very successful design. There's a lot of flashy designs, mechs, guns, but they just don't feel grounded or like don't feel right.
And to go into that idea of what feels right, we're really talking about shape and shape language and this kind of thing. So if we look at the overall outline of this mech, we've got this like pyramid shape where we've got a very flat bottom, and most of the visual weight is low to the ground, and it's got a wide stance. And all these things straight away say this is bottom heavy, it can't really be pushed over easily. And the overall shape language of this thing just supports that. Whereas if it would be more top heavy, or if the legs were very much longer, it would feel very spindly, like the thing could, maybe fall over or get tripped over, like the AT-AT design in Star Wars, right? So you've got this long spindly leg thing. So yeah, this heavy weight where all the weight is focused on the bottom end of the design, and this trapezoid shape all contributes to that as well. We can also notice as well, you've got tons and tons of, I think these are smoke grenades. So when you go into designing something, and I think on the side, so smoke screen support drone. So do you purposely create designs which also have no weapons? And do you often go into a design saying, okay, I specifically want this thing to have no weapons or certain elements, or does the design kind of change as it goes? So, to rephrase the question, how many design iterations did you go through before you finally arrived at this design?
This one was straight to the finish line from like initial sketch, and from the beginning I knew I want to have a disc. That was like, I like introducing or doing big, simple, memorable shapes on any design. It doesn't have to be vehicle. And in this case, it's a disc. It's very simple. It's, people can like, oh, it's like a mushroom, or someone called it trampoline. Like, it's memorable.
Yeah.
And then arranging like the smoke canister launchers around. That was like, oh, that's a cool idea, because maybe the original idea that this guy would follow like the other vehicles, like maybe in the front and in the back. If you get ambushed, it can like spin, smoke screen everything, and everybody gets out. And maybe you even abandon this guy in there because it's lost its use. Or maybe you remove the top part and you chuck a weapon on it. So it was also designed as a weapons platform. You can remove the disc with the smoke launchers, and you could put on a gun on top.
So it's a modular design. Yeah, it's very interesting. I think what you just said is really important as well about having a strong overall shape. And I think the other good thing about this design is by having that large flat disc, which is fairly empty in terms of detail, you have this principle of having a large rest area and then a lot of visual detail and stuff going on in the center. So you get this nice balance between, okay, there's tons of complex, pipes, tubes, and then all the way these things fastened to the actual mech. Then you've got this large area of rest where there's not much going on. So even at the graphic level, it works quite well. So you got all that going on there, yeah. And as well, just to go back to the thing you mentioned about stance, I think this image shows it quite well. You've got this, heavy forward-facing stance, and it feels low to the ground, like it can't be pushed over very easily. You also get the negative shapes as well in between some of these pipes and things, which is really nice.
Yeah, it's like all this stuff that you mentioned, like negative space versus detail. I guess that's just like standard, art fundamentals, where you have like 70% eye rest, 30% detail.
This is it, yeah.
This is it, I guess, yeah. And I'm happy you mentioned it, because that means it works. It's very successful in that regard. You asked at the beginning, like, what would I change? The most things I would change is I would just make it less noisy. In my opinion, right now there's too much going on. Also, there's a lot of elements that I'm looking at it and I was like, oh, I was lazy designing something, or something is unfinished. it's missing the front sensor. It's missing a lot of the smaller, like realistic things that need to be there. Better thought out feed. There's a lot of small things that I would improve, and I will improve, hopefully.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna be, the second iteration will be way more epic than this one, and hopefully it will walk and shoot as well.
That's it. And I think as well, just to go into that, just how important it is to be self-critical. I know, as somebody who's getting new into the industry and all that, look, it's something that never really ends. And even with somebody with as many experiences as yourself, keeping that critical eye where you can take a step back, take a look at your own work, and say, well, do you know that this could be better? It's really never ending, and it's probably one of the most important skills that you end up developing as a designer.
I think it's a blessing and a curse, at least for me, because I'm never happy with anything I do. And people who know me, they know I very often delete stuff. Like a lot of the stuff is gone from ArtStation, and in general, there's a lot of other significant work that was important but's no longer available. And it's just because it either doesn't represent anymore what I want to do. So I clean it up, like don't show stuff you don't want to do. Or it's because I look at it and I'm like, this is not good enough, I need to improve on it. And like the case with current portfolio, everything is going to be nuked at some point and just replaced with new stuff, just to like elevate, I guess, my own designs. Always a battle. That's why it's a curse, because you always look at it and you're like, oh, I hate it, and then everybody's like, we love it. I'm like, how don't you see the problems with it?
Yeah, this is it. Yeah. And I think that the idea of keeping your portfolio updated with new work. Well, I'm a bit of a hypocrite, to be honest. My portfolio is getting a bit outdated now as well. But it's like you say, and also to go back into it, keeping your portfolio updated and also relevant to the kind of jobs you want to get. There's no work in your portfolio at the minute that isn't a reflection of what you do, I assume, unless you're doing some character design or something on the side for your current clients. I don't know, but I'm assuming everything that you have is a reflection of what you do, and I think that's really important as well.
Oh, absolutely, and it's gonna be one of my main points during the talk later in the year, like the live talk, where the importance of showing the stuff, the importance of preparing yourself and your portfolio for the job that you want to do. You don't want to just get into the industry. That's such a dangerous mindset, in my opinion. A lot of people, I just want to get any job. I just want to get in. You can do it, but it's extremely dangerous, because 6 months later you will be unhappy. So
this is it. And you might find yourself in that position where you're doing something that you really don't want to do, and then it's very hard, isn't it, to carve out that extra time to start building another portfolio of the kind of stuff that you really want to do. So you're right, you do have to be quite careful. So saying that, is there any other pieces that we can have a quick chat about and maybe go over in detail? Maybe some weapons, or should we talk about the truck? Yeah,
probably the pistol, the last one, which is I guess
in terms of design,
in terms of numbers or I guess impressions from people, it's probably the least famous or whatever, but I like it because that was my attempt at can I prove to myself that I can do something other than blocky metal things with wheels. So the original idea was I'm gonna make a gun that's based on bones, so it's somewhat realistic mechanism with with a revolving drum, but the bone I guess outer shell, kind of inspired by a lot of Destiny guns.
I was just about to say, it's starting to drift into that kind of fantasy realm. I know Destiny had a big release recently as well of work for the what was it called now? The Witch Queen, The Witch Queen, thank you. So the Witch Queen. So that IP really did start to venture off into the kind of fantasy realm. So that's interesting. I can definitely see that. Yeah.
Because for me with this one, and I want to do more of this stuff for myself, mostly because I already know how to make a tank, a normal gun, all this stuff. But I also know how to make these things. It's just I don't do them. There's not many projects that would need something like that. So there's not much opportunity, or at least I don't know about those projects. But for myself, I would like to explore more like how can we fuse sort of like fantasy element with like science fiction, because I'm a huge fantasy fan, especially like dark fantasy, anything from Software, Dark Souls, Elden Ring right now.
Dark Souls, yeah.
Those are some of my favorite IPs, which is very contrary to what I actually do, because you'd
Yeah.
think I only play shooters, but my favorite subjects are actually probably fantasy, because it's
Yeah.
total opposite to what I do on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And this
that-
gun was like, to me, I was like, I'm just gonna do it for myself to prove to myself that I can get it done, and that was it.
Yeah, that's it. And it's quite funny you mentioned Dark Souls, quite a notoriously hard game, right?
Yeah.
To be into self-punishment, I think, to really enjoy that one. But yeah, really interesting design. I could see as well on some of these ones further down, you actually scrapped the board idea and went with another iteration, which kept some of this, like semi-rounded form language, and just applied it to the overall gun design. So did you? Did you create the base first and then apply the bone over the top?
So the way it was done, there is like an internal, relatively simple internal like overall mechanism and frame, and almost I would say every single design I do is always designed with functionality and not functionality, obviously functionality, the modularity in mind. So everything I design, I always design so I can take one piece and put the other piece and do a different variation, because as a concept designer, I want to see variations. I don't want to just make one thing, and if I want to revisit it, I'll do different ones. And this gun is a good example where, hey, we switched from completely like alien looking thing to somewhat modern futuristic handgun. That's a big thing for me in all of my work. I try to do that.
Yeah. And also as well, we can see this only shoots 3 rounds, so I'm assuming this might be some kind of explosive ballistic kind of bullet or something like that.
The loose story for this and why it's 3 rounds, the original name for the gun was like Last Resort. So if you are using this gun, like if you have to, like let's say you have your full kit, you have your rifle, everything. It's a lame story, but it is a story. And like if you have to use the pistol, you're in such a bad situation that if 3 rounds don't solve your problem, then nothing will.
Yeah, that's it.
So that's why there's only just 3 high-powered, maybe high explosive, maybe something like, I don't know. But that was like the general idea. I know the story doesn't come through the design, but that wasn't the intention. The story is more just for me to entertain myself while I'm making this stuff.
Yeah, this is it. And story can sometimes be really subtle. It can be, something as simple as, okay, the gun's damaged, so it has to be taped up, or there's some like wear and tear because the user hasn't like looked after it properly. Because very often, when people go and create the work for the portfolio, you've got these absolutely, perfectly clean, factory fresh, there's not a mark on them. I know in some cases you might want that, but I'm assuming when you're creating, a weapon for a game world, all these like little extra things like, okay, the body of the gun is damaged, so we need to tape it up, and there's bits like falling apart, and the metal's kind of scuffed and worn. And it's storytelling on the subtlest level, it doesn't have to be exaggerated. And also I can see as well in this version we've got a silencer going on as well. So was this created in Modo? I know you mentioned before the call that you actually was a long time Modo user and you switched to Blender. So out of your portfolio, which of these was made in Blender that we can have a quick chat about?
Everything is Modo.
Everything.
Yeah,
everything's
everything,
Modo.
yeah. That's all
okay.
pre-Blender. Right after this project, like right after that, I switched to Blender.
Yeah. And why is that? Is it just something you wanted to explore? Did you want to change? Did you see the Blender workflow as being maybe a bit quicker, or what was it that you liked about Blender?
So it's like a very painful story, because switching from Modo to Blender was absolute nightmare. It was,
okay.
I hate to say it, but it was very stressful few months, because I was also switching while I was doing client work.
Oh,
which is not something you should be doing, but I did not have any other choice. At the same time, I saw all the other people using it, and it's kind of like the fear of being left behind. because you always, like when I was in the studio, we had people like who would refuse to switch from whatever tool they use, insert any name of the tool, even if there is a better way to do the same thing with like a new tool that you have to learn. And I'm always afraid to be the person who gets stuck and refuses to move forward. So learning Blender was first and foremost, again, proving to myself that I can do it. Just so like, yes, I can pick up a new complicated software and I can master it and I can use it in work. That was the first reason. Second reason, like everybody else mentioned a couple of years ago, I think especially like Bon Ling, Heavy Poly, he said like it's super customizable and you can do everything with Blender. And it's true. Once you go through the pain of learning it, and once you modify it with hundreds of add-ons, and it works together, it's an absolutely a powerhouse of a concept production tool. I would not recommend anything else other than that. I'm not even mentioning that it's free. That's kind of like irrelevant. You're gonna pay for add-ons and all this stuff. It's not free. But the flexibility it offers, it's incredible at the high stress cost of learning it, because it's probably the most complicated software I've ever tried. I know Houdini people will be like, it's not hard, it's fine. For like an average concept artist, I think that's the most complicated piece of software you can master. You can use it basically, like on the basic level, but if you want to master it, it's very difficult. Totally worth the investment.
Yeah, very true as well. I mean, obviously I've explored Blender. I purchased plugins. You do need those plugins to get it up to the same level. If you are coming from, say, 3ds Max or a Modo, you probably are going to find yourself, purchasing those additional plugins. So you're right, it isn't completely free. You do need to, invest a little bit of, money into that thing to get up and running. The only issues, I would say, the downsides that I found was, with large scenes with many meshes and things going on, I did find it crashing quite a bit. So for me, I did put the time and the effort into Blender, but in some areas with larger scenes, it did crash quite a bit. So I'm one of those people that's on the fence. I do use it, I can use it, but I still have Modo installed, so I'm kind of in between. I can also recommend, I know everyone's probably heard of Yammer. He's created a lot of plugins for Blender which have been very useful, and they sped up a huge part of the pipeline, which is texturing. So he's created some plugins for texturing different things, which I found useful. So those are great. So Blender for me, one of those tools at the minute. I am on the fence about it with certain things, but it's interesting to hear. Because like I said, I know you were a Modo user for many years, and I think if you are one of those people that are a bit put off by it, I would say definitely install it and give it a go. There's certain things that Blender can do which are just generally very quick, which was nice. The first thing I noticed was booleans, just a quick way you can add booleans and subtract shapes and things like that, and also the texturing and the rendering. The Eevee engine was incredible as well. When I first used it, it was really good to see.
Yeah, it came a long way, and right now it's I'm very happy that I did switch, because in retrospect it sped up everything to unbelievable levels. I personally would not be able to do like 3D concept design the way I do it now without it, just because it's so fast. And for everyone listening who thinks like you can just pick it up and be fast with it, no, you need to sit down, spend time, learn, create your own workflows, create your own way of doing stuff, and then sort of like harvest the benefits, like with any other software or anything in life in general. Master it and you'll be proficient. Same with Modo.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I know you gave a quick shout out before to Vaughan Ling, that's Heavy Poly. And I remember when I was first learning Blender, his scripts came, it was so useful when I was learning Blender, because it basically just took all the slowness out of learning the program and it just sped it up a ton. So a lot of good free scripts and shortcuts and things by Heavy Poly made picking up Blender very fast. So definitely worth checking out. So and by the way, while we're on this, I know I can see in the corner here, this was a Blender and Modo mix. So I'm guessing this was probably during the time that you were making that switch. Is that right?
I don't remember what I used Blender for. I used it for something, but Might be the renders actually.
Yeah.
Also, just to quickly like track back to Blender and why I'm using it and why I think more people should at least learn it. So many studios moved to Blender. A good example, I work with Embark Studios. Everybody runs Blender.
Right.
Like
Okay.
if somebody comes in and designs thing, let's say in ZBrush, and gives us the ZBrush mesh, we can't work with it because the whole pipeline, as far as I can tell, is Blender. We all share the same files, and it speeds up everything for everybody. I give my blend file to the 3D artist, and then they run it through their own systems, and it's super like a streamlined progress. That would probably be the main reason, because all studios running it now.
Oh, that's interesting. And then does that export straight into Unreal or Unity, or is it a custom game engine?
That depends on I guess the 3D production, which I'm not really well versed in. In terms of Embark, I think they run it through like their own systems, and it goes straight into the what we're using, Unreal Engine.
Unreal Engine, yeah.
My actual 3D modeling pipeline knowledge is like zero. I can barely UV map anything, so everything is procedural. I just do dirty models and I present them nicely. I cheat everything.
Yeah. I mean, for the people who don't know, getting your model out of the 3D package and making sure that it's LOD'd correctly, and making sure that thing looks correct in the game engine is just an entire job in and of itself. Even if you just completely forget about design, all the rest of it. But again, that's going more into, I believe the correct name is technical artist, right? Technical 3D artist. Yeah. Those are the people that purely just optimize your meshes for the game engine. But that's a whole different talk, I guess. And also, by the way, while we're on it, I can see in the description you did say this is started out as a form exercise. And I know we mentioned before during the chat that maybe we could have a quick chat about what that is. So when you talk about a form exercise, are you looking to practice purely in speeding up the program, or are you doing these things just to explore new form languages, or is it just that you've seen a cool shape and you want to try and replicate in the program? So like, what is a form exercise, and how do you do it?
So for me, the most important thing in design, or like my goal as a designer, is to ever create better shapes and combinations of shapes. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing keyframes, I'm not doing environments. I would consider myself, I do shape design as much as I can, and this prop that you're looking at now is like a good example of a form or shape exercise where the top orange part is quite complex in terms of how everything is arranged and how everything blends together. I just wanted to see if I can figure out how can I do it. That was it, and I did. I'm pretty happy with the result. There are some things that I would change, but every time I start a project, especially a personal project now, it's not just like I'm gonna do a gun, I'm gonna do a robot, I'm gonna do a tank. It's like, okay, how can I make it more visually interesting? Plus combine everything I said before. It's grounded, it's realistic, not realistic, it's believable. It's not completely out there sci-fi. So good utility, good function, plus very good shape. And I'm trying to do more and more complex shapes, more and less pretty much stuff like you're looking at now. Less boxy stuff. Boxy stuff is, I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's not as interesting to me personally anymore, because I've done a lot of that stuff with trucks and Star Citizen work.
This is it. And for people who are getting new, for example, if we take a look at the side here, you can see this soft shape that's been cut into, and now if you create using Boolean operations to do this, it creates a lot of issues with the mesh, right? You get like broken mesh issues, so you've really got to go in there and make sure this stuff comes out right. So yeah, I can see different like booleans and things going on. Yeah.
It could be better looking back at everything. Like I'm not too particularly happy with it now, but I do think still it's, as a separate standalone object, I look at it, it's quite interesting. I would say it's kind of unique. Not the most exciting, but for me personally, I like it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think as well, something to pay attention to is, even though this is a form exercise and everything else, you've actually gone in there and added the functional details. So for example, where the pipe connects to this, so you've got the end of the pipe and then you've got the nuts and rivets and things that connect the two pieces of metal together. Then if you look closely, you can see, say, like the rubber seals as well, and then there's like the metal band which keeps the seal tight, and then it goes into the metal. So it's just this idea of paying attention to functionality, and I think there's even a small, I mean, I can't quite see on the screen here, but there's like a small button and screen as well, and then there's like, you can see very tiny, some wires and cables go into this thing. So you've even got these small functional details which add the believability to the design. And so that's the large, medium, small, and then tiny level of detail. And I think as well, just taking something that is a practice and taking it to that finished level, I think makes it look good in the portfolio as well.
Yeah, I don't really do studies per se. I'm not sitting and sketching stuff or like trying to figure out how to do a form. I like to challenge myself through a personal project, or I do that at work as well, where I get the like client task and I'll be like, okay, there's an easy way to do it, there is like a safe way to do it, and then there is a interesting but difficult way to do it, and depending on a lot of other factors like how much time, etc.
Yeah, this is it.
I will very often go for like interesting and difficult, just because if you do it for client, it adds extra layer of challenge because you have to deliver if you go that way. So you force yourself in a position where you have to do good and you have to deliver something interesting, and you can't be lazy and slack. I try not to go easy routes if I can. Not always, but if I can.
This is it. I'm really paying attention to how much time you have on task, and then trying to balance that between, okay, how far can I push it? How far can I push the details, and how much time do you have to explore different options for the design? It's really interesting. As well, I've just noticed on this design, even if we look right into the cockpit, we can see there's even, I've just noticed it now, there's a little fire extinguisher for the driver to put out the engine fire while he's driving it. So, little believable details and things like that. I'm assuming this might come from, is it racing cars, or is it from like real, I'm guessing some trucks might have this. Or is it just made up?
The fire extinguisher?
Yeah, the fire extinguisher in the driver's seat.
That was just because there is one outside as well, like right behind.
Yeah, I can see on the fuel
tank. I just, how like cars have the fire extinguisher, so like it's mandatory to have one. And I was like, also to be honest, it's just a free detail. I had the fire extinguisher done. I might as well check it inside. I was planning to do interior shots, but by the time I got to it, I was so worn out on this whole project that I was just like, I'm not bothered doing any interior shots, and I just abandoned it and posted what I had. Run out of steam back then.
That's fine. But yeah, man, overall, I think a successful design, very fun as well. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's just started like a little challenge with friends, and then it grew into this. It was not supposed to be this. It was supposed to be like one weekend small project, and then it turned into
multi-week monster. Yeah, that's it. I actually like it when that happens sometimes. You start off with like a small prop and it ends up becoming an entire IP. Anyway, touched on Star Citizen at all yet, and I know based on reading about your background, you spent quite a bit of time working on the IP. How long were you working on Star Citizen for?
3.5 years I was in house.
Wow, 3.5 years. So you probably know the manufacturers and all the backstory and everything in probably quite a lot of detail. So with the well, I hope so. Fingers crossed. Anyway, so with the Drake Interplanetary spaceship. So from what I can see, this, I'm assuming, is some kind of, it says salvage ship. So yep. I'm guessing we're given like a rough form to start with. Like, how did this design start out? Were we given an idea, a direction, a brief from the art director? Like, how far along? What was the overall beginning of this design? Was it completely from scratch? How did you start?
So they wanted a salvage ship, and that was the. This ship has an incredibly long story that spans. That it's like part of like internal stuff at CIG at the time, but this ship came in hot, and I basically had to finish it. So there was a lot of fire on it already, and then when it came into like our concept department, It was me and I think Gary Sanchez,
Oh yeah,
who I don't remember if he was still in the house back then or he left and he was freelancing. I think he was freelancing already. Anyway, we just quickly jumped on it and we had some ideations. The general idea was we want a salvage ship. It has like 2 arms. It goes and like I guess salvages the derelicts by sucking in all the metal parts that it cuts off in between arms. Then they go into the grinder, and then it spits out at the back. Basically, a small flying refinery. Bunch of sketches, and my direction for this one was originally like crabs. I was looking at a lot of like crabs because crabs have the 2 big
the 2 claws at the front,
the claws, and it was kind of interesting in different silhouette. And then eventually looking at the Drake catalog, which at the time was just a Drake hover bike, I was like, it's already done. We don't need to design anything. You basically scale up the hover bike. Not only it's gonna look Drake and create signature, at that time I thought it's gonna create signature Drake look. 2 arms, it's yellow because Drake hover bike was yellow. It's got 2 arms, it's kind of blocky, it hovers. So that was the original direction, and then it nicely fit the gameplay that I wanted to propose. And what I wanted to see is big open cockpit, and you can see everything that goes in front of you. Back then, a lot of players would complain like, "There's not enough visibility from cockpit. We can't see." I was like, "Relax, guys. We'll sort it out." So I created this thing. It went really well. A lot of visibility, and you can see all the mechanical aspects of it working, and the whole fact that it kind of like folds in on itself when it lands. I thought that was pretty interesting in terms of from like animation point of view. Everybody went with it, and
I was just about to say we can see that in this last animation here of those large heavy arms. I was also going to say the yellow color and these large pipes, it's very reminiscent of construction equipment. So you'll have the hydraulic tubes on the outside of the the yellow machinery, and it all makes you think and feel of construction machinery.
Like one of the main references for this was I think it's called Virgin. It's a German soil stabilizer, incredible machine. And some of the aspects of this design were stolen from like real world mechanical stuff that works. It also has folded guns, which I believe they removed in the final version. My idea was that you can deploy the weapons and you can see the weapons from the cockpit if you have to fire. But I think they removed the deployable animation and it's just fixed on the side. I would need to double check. This ship only now is getting into the game 3 years later, which is crazy.
That's a long time. And talking about those deployable guns, is that what we can see here on this shot here of the cockpit on the side?
It would rotate 90 degrees. It would rotate 90 degrees down and like fold upwards, so it's like just folds into the cockpit nicely, so you can get into the ship, deploy the guns. I like stuff that just moves, and in general in games, whenever I try to design, if it's FPS, how can we make like it's first person view for the player? How can we make that view the most exciting? And that ship provided plenty of opportunity to do that, and I hope people will enjoy it, flying it and salvaging.
Yeah, that's it. And talking about movement, we can see there's a lot of effort and thought being put into, say, I don't know if people can see this, maybe we can zoom in just a touch, so you can see how the guns, I'm sure the guns here, and the cockpit as well slides forward. Is that right? So the chair slides forward into position. You've also got the arms moving down, and
the chair moves. The cockpit stays still, but the arms move. The salvaging, I guess the jaw of the whole thing moves up as well. This design was a huge undertaking at the time, and a lot of like very, very stressful. Also, just a stressful long process of doing something this complex under a deadline in the studio. Both fun and not fun.
That's it. And so when you're in the studio and you're working through this, typically how long do they give you to create a spaceship from start to end, or I mean, we'd be able to
These
give a rough
were
idea.
3 months. This one 3 months. And it might sound like a lot of time, but that includes marketing shots, which is generally like a month plus, because you need to create illustrations. And there is a lot of meetings, revisions, working with designers, making sure it works in games. So that's what drags out the whole process, because it's not just you sit down and you design a thing. You do a little bit, then people look at it, something changes, then you do again, and it's very iterative team effort with a lot of hands on deck, and a lot of voices putting in their own take on it. And my job is to kind of take all of that and package it nicely and sort of present so everybody's happy. That's why it takes so long, which is a very long time. And by the end of it, you just feel exhausted, but you jump on the next ship and start again.
Yeah, this is it. And for those new people breaking in, being able to take the criticism and the advice and the input from your teammates in order to make a stronger design, or to try and guide your design so that it fits the overall art direction and the style of the IP you're trying to make, is I think is so important. And also, you mentioned about marketing shots. This is what we have here on the screen, right? Would this be one of the marketing shots to help sell the overall spaceship? Yeah. So you can see it here, the spaceship just salvaging some wreckage of a gigantic cruiser or something. I don't know. So
yeah, it was an incredible learning experience for sure. Like, I learned so much working in the studio, and I learned a lot not only about how to design and work on projects, but more importantly how to deal with people, because you can do the design at home, you can learn that at home, but dealing with people and the internal politics and struggles of that stuff, that's probably my biggest takeaway from being in the studio. That's like the human aspect of this industry is extremely underrated. It is so important to be not only a good artist and designer, but also to be a good
collaborator,
just a human person. Be like a people's person as well. Be a good businessman, businesswoman. Deal with the business side of things. It's not just sitting down and making pretty images. That's what people think it is, but it's not. It's also a job. It's not just me like, haha, I'm gonna make a cool gun. There's so much more involved beyond just sketching in Photoshop or modeling stuff out. So people should be aware of that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of money invested into these games and IPs. So there's a lot on the line as well. So when you go to make that design, you really want to make sure that it's great for the people that are going to play the game, and make sure that people invested all that money into the thing. Get a great quality product, and like you say, being great with people, being able to take feedback well, being able to sometimes say, actually, no, I think the design should go in this direction, because there's also the flip side as well. There's sometimes that you probably need to actually put your foot down and say, well, I think this design, is suitable because X, Y, and Z, and sometimes you've got to argue your case as well. So it all comes down to, like you say, having great skills as somebody who works in the company. And also just to quickly, and just to go back to what you mentioned about marketing arts, I do remember looking at this piece. So this was another marketing art image that you did, but did you also design the ship as well, or you designed the ship as well? That's fantastic. So I can see, so this looks more like an exotic design. Is that right? Is that one of the more exotic ships in the series, or?
Yeah, so I jumped from like the Drake ship, which is like industrial block, and I went straight into like total polar opposite. We're like, we need an alien ship, and it has to be pointy and Lamborghini in space, essentially. So that was another yet good learning experience where you, at least at CAG, you would have to be, if you work on ships, which is a whole process getting to working on ships, you have to be able to jump from like, you can't just do one art style. You need to be able to do all of them, and they all are complex in their own right. And this was a good example of extremely complex design, not only form-wise, but like function-wise. There was a lot of requests that are very hard to put into the concept, but in the end, we all worked together with the art director and the rest of the team, and it went just fine.
Yeah, I can tell. And in terms of the overall form language, it's really the Drake ship that we saw before, which is like, more heavy looking construction, feeling like you say inspired by the crab. So this is quite delicate. I mean, was it inspired by an insect? Like, what was the main inspiration for this? Can you remember?
One of the ships was already done for this manufacturer, originally by Gary Sanchez, and it already had elements of. It's just like. It's kind of like insectoid, like the legs, a good example. We wanted like very. Not creepy, but like a grasshopper. Like I was looking at grasshoppers designing this thing, and so mixing that with the original Xian spaceship that Gary already designed, which is pointy. And the main thing about the ships, they're vertical, so they land when they land they have a horizontal profile, but when they in flight they transform into vertical. So there was this whole like animation concept process where I had to design how does it open up, how does it unfold, how does it land. I don't know if I don't remember if I even have that animation anymore. There is animation of it like spinning around and landing. Doesn't help saying it, but there is one. It was a process, just like the previous ship. All of these are unique challenges with unique issues going through that.
Yeah, and I can actually see, and if we all just take a look at the actual parts, the arms where this thing connects, you can see this thing has to obviously pivot and move and spin on the axis. You've got to make sure all these large plates don't collide with each other. I can imagine there's probably a lot of times, testing this thing and do the wings, collide with each other? Do these things like fall down properly? So there's a lot of consideration about the functionality and ergonomics of the design. And also, I've completely just scrolled up past it, but let's just admire this bubble cockpit. Absolutely insane looking thing. I mean, God only knows. So you can see the glass canopy kind of cuts in half and away and pulls down from the cockpit. It's completely cylindrical all the way down to the way the chair connects and everything.
Incredible. It was another challenge where it had to. We already had the preset animation that we would use, so the animation for the character entering the ship was already done. So I had to adjust the design so nothing's clipping, and the way it opens up, it kind of like folds onto itself. There's a lot of magic involved with this ship because they use like anti-gravity technology or something. It doesn't have to be hinged; it can float. So a lot of the glass panels, they kind of float out. And a lot of the controls inside of the ship, they also like floating controls because that's what the alien manufacturers do. They like floaty things.
That's it, yeah. And also as well, I know from watching a few videos of people using the spaceships in Star Citizen, there's usually some way of where you can walk up to the ship and board it, and there's some boarding animation, like a ladder falls down or the cockpit comes down. I think one of the most extreme ones I saw was like a chair actually comes out of the front. So is this a similar design? Does the chair come out and down, or is there a ladder somehow, or maybe like a floating step ladder? Like how does the player board it? Is it low enough to the floor that they can just get into the seat?
There are floating tiny steps that come out of that thing.
Yeah, and we also.
Yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, were you tasked with designing like the first-person view from inside the seat, or was that done by somebody else?
On these ships, everything was kind of on the person who does the ship design. So like the FPS view, the way you concept it, the way it's going to be in the game, the way it animates, the way it's going to be in the game. So you had to wear a lot of hats at the same time and make sure it works. In a way, you were the designer, the animator, the gameplay person. Maybe it has changed since then. I don't know what kind of workflows they use now. I've been out of there for a long time, but back then, concept team would take care of a lot of things, and we would try to preemptively like fix the problems before they even arise, which is again a great way to learn to do these things.
Yeah. I remember in my first interview with Alberto, he said he mentions he does a lot of animation as well for some of his, say Crusader interiors. So it's an interesting point to touch upon there, and super sick design, as well as just pulling back to some of the other work that you did for the Metal Gear 5 inspired designs. You use negative space quite a lot in your design work. You can see it again here in the tail section. So you've got a nice negative space going on as well, and a lot of like insects and animal forms as well. I know you've mentioned like a crab before as well. So yeah, super cool and really nice marketing shot there. Cool. All right, and let's take a look. So, shall we touch on the Javelin maybe?
Yeah, we can quickly go for it. Yeah.
Okay.
So this one was a 1.5 year long personal project, which went through a lot of stages. Originally, it was not completely, slightly different design with a different back and a crane on top.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact inspiration for the first one or what I wanted to do with it. I was like, I'm just gonna make a truck.
And how long did you say? And how long did you say you were working on this one? Like 1 year.
This was on and off like 1.5 years to get to this point, and it wasn't. If I consolidate the actual, like, I sit down and like the actual work time, it's probably like a month, maybe even less. It's not that, but you work in your free time and it's on and off, like. So it took a while to come to this conclusion, but I think the original idea was like, how can I make something that's slightly more sci-fi but not sci-fi? Because before that I would do stuff that's like very hardcore green camo, like military with the gun, and I was like, how can I make like a near what would be a near future sci-fi-ish truck that's still believable? So I designed the first variation, didn't like it. Started working on this one. I wanted to simplify it a lot more. How can I do more with less? That's why it's got like this backpack on the back. A lot of negative, a lot of like eye rest. Again, like how can how can we do more with less? It has a lot of detail if you remove it, but if you put the thing back on, it's quite clean. And again, just like with the Mongoose mech, how can we make something that stands really well, something that's very just like good looking, like if the character comes to it from any angle, so from like the human eye level, it needs to look formidable. It needs to kind of like tower over you. Even though it's a horizontal design, I still want it to be like very impressive. Hence like the plow at the front, exposed tires on the sides, they're not like tucked in and covered. A lot of inspirations from like the Russian BTR vehicles from Soviet era, like BTR 80. They have like a very, very good like hull design and stance. So
are these the vehicles for? I mean, I'm not too I'm not too read up on my Soviet era vehicles. Are these ones that are used for crossing like the Arctic, snowy kind of landscapes? Or what is? What
are no. The BTRs are the infantry. It's like the standard infantry carrier vehicles. It's got like 8 wheels. It's pretty basic design, and it's got the middle entry point as well, which is taken from there. So like the door is in the middle, because also it breaks up the design like nicely in like 2 sections. I would say there's nothing special about this thing, but I still hold it special to myself. So,
and I was going to say, like, make keeping yourself interested in those personal projects for a long time. I think that's really important as well, isn't it? Just to keep your mental game, in check, and making sure that you're keeping yourself inspired even off the job. So what are some of those things that you do to keep yourself going, even when you're tired and after work?
I think it's it's like I like the unknown aspect of making art, or like making designs, because you never know what it will lead to. So each project you finish, like you upload or people see it, it can lead to God knows what, which I really, really enjoy. It's almost like gambling. I don't gamble, but it's almost like, okay, let's just do something and see what happens. Besides the whole aspect that I do enjoy design, there's thousands of ideas that I want to make, so I don't have like creative blocks of lack of inspiration. And as to how to find energy, to do it after work, that's a whole another topic about balancing your work life, personal work balance, which is a separate talk. But biggest thing, and like right now with the personal project that I'm doing, I can't wait to like eventually, when it's ready, release and just see what happens with it, where it's going to lead, and what kind of like opportunities will it open up, because this truck opened up a lot of very interesting doors.
Yeah, I can imagine this. I imagine this managed to pull in a lot of new clients for you. I assume did this lead on to like Embark and probably Monsters as well, or?
The most interesting one with this one, I was contacted by Volvo.
Volvo
Before
that's
pandemic,
yeah.
But that never went anywhere because pandemic hit and nothing
Yeah.
happened. But that truck could have led to something interesting. With Probably Monsters, which is my main client for like the past 2 years, I was just referred by a friend, by Sheng, because he was working on it, and he put my name forward, and they liked my work, and that was about it. And with the Embark, I think they saw my whole portfolio, and because they already announced the project, the Arc Raiders, it's very mechanically heavy, and they wanted somebody who can do that efficiently, because it needs to be done fairly quickly, and I guess my portfolio helped with that as well.
Absolutely. I did actually take a look when you mentioned it at the Arc Raiders trailer, and halfway through I wasn't 100% sure if you designed it, but there's a gigantic mech that appears on the screen, and everyone's like trying to bring this thing down. Was that one of your designs, or was that done by somebody else?
When I joined, that was already designed overall. I just worked on small parts like legs, and I did design. There is like a small drone that appears. You can't really see it really well, but I can claim that as my design. It's a lot of collaborative work between myself, Tahir Esbjorn, and the Andrea art director. So we all work essentially all together on the same thing, and that's where the Blender thing comes in really handy, because we all work essentially on the same scene. So one day I work on thing, and then I give them Blender file, they work, and then they give it back to me, and we carry on. So yeah, that's a great studio to work with, great people as well. I really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's like you say, just open up those blend files and you can just like pull the parts that you need, combine parts. It can be really quick to iterate on things as well using that workflow.
Yeah.
And I know you mentioned working with new people. Before this started, I know you said you worked for Treyarch on, I don't know if you're allowed to say about some of the stuff, but you worked on some of the Call of Duty stuff as well, is that right?
Yeah, I worked on Black Ops 4, and then I worked on Cold War, and the unannounced project as well. I'm working with a small team led by my friend Long Ouyang. He's basically, so the way it works, like Treyarch sends him the tasks and he kind of like distributes it through us, but we still work for Treyarch. And we have like our group of people. I don't do that. I don't work for Treyarch anymore, just because I don't work on Call of Duty because I kind of burned out on those projects. There's only so many Call of Duties you can do.
How many Call of Duties are we talking here?
It's just like 2. But the stuff that I did there, it was fun. It was fun. I wouldn't say it's anything special, because Treyarch has such refined workflows and streamlined production to the point where you get the task, you finish, you do like sketches, okay, then you do like whatever, next round, final, done. It's very straightforward. It's very production. It's very almost dry in a way, like you just do the work. Still fun because I get to work with Long and like a bunch of other people who are all exceptional designers. Everybody is extremely under the radar and nobody knows about them. It's like a secret club, which is super cool.
That's it. And it's Long. I know Long's been actually in the industry quite a long time now. And was he also contributing to the game, or was he purely just an art director on the project?
Oh no, he's not an art director. He's just kind of like in a way, like outsource manager, I would almost say.
So he's managing people and contributing at the same time.
Yeah, he works like, I guess, Shadi Safari with one pixel brush. It's just he doesn't have a website, or we don't have like a name. Like we can't just link you to a studio. It's a group on like a messenger or like whatever we use to communicate, and that's it. But everybody does exceptional work. That's the best part. It's like nobody knows about it, but the crazy stuff happens there, and it's very inspiring.
Yeah, I think that's well, a plus side and one of the sad sides about this industry is so much of this amazing work just ends up on a hard drive, and the public doesn't get to see it. There's so many absolutely amazing designs that just ended up going on to some online drive somewhere and never sees the light of day. So I don't know. I guess some people prefer it that way. I don't know, but that's just the way it goes, I guess.
All of my Call of Duty work will stay like that. It will never see the light of day, mainly because I'm just not bothered going through their like release thing, because you need to fill in a lot of documents to release work. I'm just like, whatever.
Yeah, that's it.
It's fine.
Yeah, and at the moment we've currently got a futuristic org-based design. So is this similar to what you will be doing on the Call of Duty franchise, or are we doing something completely different? Yeah, similar.
Not in terms of style, but like quality is very close. And just because a lot of the stuff that we did for them, or still doing, it's just very well designed, polished work, and that's what I like working with Long Ouyang, because he's always like, okay, it has to be 120% every time, which is really keeping like your skills sharp, and you learn a lot about how can you make a better design faster, and slowly you become faster without sacrificing the quality. I've noticed over the last half a decade, a lot of people became very quick, but the quality starts to like kind of dip in a lot of aspects. I'm trying to personally avoid that, and how can it be faster and better at the same time?
This is it. Yeah, and taking that time aside, maybe just towards the end of the day, to create those scripts, create those materials, or just even explore some new aspect of Blender or whatever program it is you use, purely just to implement that change into tomorrow's workflow, just so it is a little bit faster, is I think something that's worth doing every single day. And
absolutely,
yeah, and that goes back into your personal practice as well, as we mentioned before with your form exercises. While you're doing those exercises, you can just think to yourself, okay, well, is there a script that we can create here that just skips a few steps in that process? And by doing that a little bit each day, how much faster will you be by the end of the week? So something to keep in mind for you people. Yeah, and okay, so we have been chatting for about just over an hour now. So is there anything else that we can go over while we've got you here? Is there anything else you want to add?
I guess my biggest advice for people would be stay true to what you want to do. That's like don't follow the industry, don't follow the trends, don't follow what I do, just do exactly what you like, and the jobs will come over. Like, that's my biggest takeaway for myself and for some of my friends, where we just do what we personally enjoy and love, and that brings the relative like the work that we want to do, and makes us happier people, which is gonna be a main, I guess, point for my talk later this year: how to stay happy, productive, and succeed in this industry without losing your mind, because it's very easy to lose it here. Yeah, it's a hard job. It's very rewarding. I wouldn't trade it for anything else, but it's certainly not like I'm not here sitting drawing images all day. There's a lot of stuff going into it.
Yeah, this is it, and some of these designs, they can be quite complicated. There's a lot of moving parts, function elements. There's a lot of effort put into making sure that things feel believable, and making sure that you stay on top of your mental game, and like you said, keeping happy and making sure you stay on top of things throughout your entire career is so important. And so we're just going to slowly wrap this up now. I've got one last question for you. So we've just been talking a bit about mental game. So the last question is, if you could upload your mind into any person or animal, who or what would that be, and why?
A cat.
Well, why a cat?
First of all, independent, agile, and in a lot of respects, an absolute apex predator of the nature. Cats are like way up, like they just survive everything.
This is absolutely devastates mice. It's got the claws, it's got the fangs.
And they're so cute. Everybody loves cats. It's incredible. In my opinion, it's one of the perfect nature designs. Cats. There you go.
You see, you got the claws on one end and the fluffy tail on the other, and you just don't know what to do. You look at that thing, you know.
Just sleep all day. Nobody bothers you.
This is it.
Fantastic.
Savage mice at night, sleep all day. Anyway, that was absolutely awesome. So thanks, Alex. So just to wrap it up, I'll just quickly go over the gfdnorth.uk. So if you want to come and listen to Alex give a presentation, he'll be here on Saturday, the 6th of August at GFD North in Manchester. Just head over onto the website, gfdnorth.uk, and you can go and you can find a link to Alex's ArtStation page here. And you can also go and click sign up to get notified of when tickets will be available to the public. We've also just recently added a podcast section where we'll be adding interviews with each guest. And that wraps up this episode 3. It's been absolutely amazing having you on, Alex. Thanks for coming on and chatting with us today. So I've been
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, thank you everybody for listening. My name's Ryan Woodhouse. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.